like I said, channeling is a huge one. I'll get into the Ashtar command pretty soon, and that was originally started by someone channeling. And yeah, it's really interesting the things they say. And then and then also in past broadcasts, I mentioned my book called New World Order by the Ashtar Command, which was written in 1990, and it talks about the New World Order, meaning the new coming age, the age of Aquarius, which is also New World Order. I mean, is a term that was used by the Theosophical Society. It would describing the same thing: a universal brotherhood of religion, a one world government, and so yeah, when they say New World Order, they mean New World Order. They look at it with a very positive light, unlike people in the conspiracy movement. Obviously, you say that term and you try to use that term positively, most people will be like, look at you like you're crazy. But no, to them it is a positive term, and it's basically like a utopia. And so yeah, they're very similar to Theosophy, the Aetherius Society. They talk about the Ascended Masters, and yeah, I mean they believe all these UFO religions. They kind of say Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and all the other religious leaders were cosmic masters, and a lot of them believe they're of extraterrestrial origin, and they basically came to Earth to help mankind. And different eras have different teachers, and soon for the Age of Aquarius we're going to have a new cosmic master come down to Earth and to help mankind. It'll be these beings always come at the time when we need them most. They say things like that, at a time of great catastrophe and great turmoil. So that's what they're pushing, and yeah, they're basically preparing. They're trying to prepare the way for the coming of the next master, which is what Alice Bailey talks about, the externalization of the hierarchy, kind of getting that message out there. And so yeah, that's the Aetherius Society. Like I said, 1955. You can watch some interesting videos interviewing the leader George King that was very interesting to say the least. Because for one thing that makes it interesting is just how old it is. These UFO religions have been around for a while. Okay, the next one I'm going to get into is one that I know a pretty good amount about, for the reason I was actually near the incident when it happened, which was the Heaven's Gate organization in Southern California. I was in Southern California at the time. I believe Pasadena. I think it happened in San Diego, so not too far. And I remember just being absolutely just freaked out. I mean, I was just as a kid. And for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, it was a pretty big deal when it happened back in the 90s, 1997 to be specific. But what it was yes, a total UFO religion. These people just were very interesting, to say the least. And when I talk about them, I don't want to talk about them in a belittling way. I don't like to, like I said, attack the beliefs of individuals. But I mean, these people did believe some very strange things. But anyways, the Heaven's Gate cult was a UFO religion based in San Diego, and is founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. They had a long-standing standing relationship, and they both were into spirituality. They started out, I think, as a pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, I know as Christian, and I think pretty much a mainline Christian, but they kind of went further and further along, and strayed away from that more and more to this kind of weird New Age UFO religion. And so yeah, they were basically like an inseparable couple, and they would do these retreats, totally isolated from society. Wouldn't let they would try to not let the members of their religious group they'd make sure that they wouldn't talk to family members, or at least talk to family members at a bare minimum. So they were just totally surrounded by each other all the time. But ultimately, they believed that Earth was about to be destroyed, and they needed to leave to enter what they call the next level. And this goes back to appealing to men trying to become like gods. It's that just that desire to become like God. So, but yeah, they believed Earth was about to be destroyed, and the sign that they saw was the Halley-Bopp comet, which goes around the Earth, I believe, every 2,000 years. I remember that too pretty well. That comet, it was a big deal. I mean, 2,000 years. Obviously, not going to see that again in my lifetime. But they, Marshall the leader, which I think is, if I believe correctly, his nickname was either Doe or Bo. They had very strange nicknames, but I'll just refer to him as Applewhite. When he saw the comet, he told his followers that this is a sign, this is it. There, and he claimed that there was I guess a literal spaceship behind the tail of the comet, and in order for them to exit this Earth, Earth was about to be recycled, they called it. In order for them to do that, they all had to leave their Earth bodies and get into the spaceship that way. So how did they do that, you might ask? Well, they 39 of them, including Applewhite. So Applewhite and 38 others. Applewhite was the leader. They all killed themselves on March 19th, 1997. And so yeah, he claimed that the spacecraft was trailing Haley Bob, and he convinced 38 of them to take their lives with him. And they said that their souls would now be a level of existence above human. The way they killed themselves was through something called phenobarbital. It sounds like some barbiturate, some sort of depressant, mixed with applesauce or pudding, and then washed down with vodka. And then they put plastic bags secured over their heads after ingesting the mix to induce asphyxiation. It's pretty gruesome, so hopefully I'm not grossing any of you out. But yeah, this is a very I shouldn't say interesting. I don't mean to sound cold, but very, very strange occurrence. So yeah, the authorities. I don't know how they even. Someone must have realized that they hadn't seen them active in there for a while. They weren't picking up their mail or newspapers, but must have got cops called on them in one way or the other. But authorities found the dead lying in their bunk beds with faces and torsos covered by a square purple cloth. All of the members had a $5 bill and 3 quarters in their pocket. All 39 were dressed in the same black shirts and sweats, and they had brand new black and white Nikes on. They had armbands reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. And yeah, very bizarre to say the least. Oh, just to add more things to make this very strange, a bunch of the males were castrated not long before it happened. And I mean, because they shunned any sexuality, drugs. It was just a very close-knit this group of people. And man, you guys, if you ever get the chance, it is kind of spooky, but you can watch some of their last words before they decided to take their lives, and they were ecstatic. There was no sign of hesitation or depression. I mean, they could barely stop smiling just when they talked about it. So they genuinely believed that that's what they were doing. They were leaving this planet. And man, yeah, and just to go back to what I said, I was in Southern California. I remember being a kid and then seeing the footage on TV of their leader. I think his name, he called himself Bo, and he has this kind of very dazed look in his eyes, and well, I don't know if it's dazed, but just very, very spooky. I had nightmares. I still remember having the nightmares I had after that. It's like I said, it only happened not too far from where I was, and I was just a little kid at the time, and only around 10 years old. And yeah, so I mean, not a lot of these UFO religions, as far as I'm aware, have these mass suicides, so it was unique in that sense. But yeah, I mean, spiritually, I think a lot of it was let me see. I have a something here. Let me just read this part real quick. Okay, yeah. One thing that makes them in common with a lot of these other UFO religions is they talk about the ancient astronaut hypothesis, which I mean it varies from whoever is bringing it up at the time, but a lot of these groups have a very similar belief in this, and actually this belief is getting more and more mainstream. You'd be surprised, and I know History Channel does documentaries on this and such, and more and more people are starting to get into this. But let me read. I have a quote I saved here. So yeah, the term ancient astronauts. Okay, so yeah, they taught the belief that aliens planted the seeds of current humanity millions of years ago and have to come to reap the harvest of their work in the form of spiritually evolved individuals who will join the ranks of flying saucer crews. Only a select few members of humanity will be chose to advance to this transhuman, that's a term they use, not me, state. The rest will be left to wallow in the in the spiritually poisoned atmosphere of a corrupt world. Yeah, so these people definitely had a outsider view on things, and I can feel for a lot of these people because I think a lot of the people in this cult, they're not. I shouldn't say a lot. I mean, none of the people in the cult, from the clips I've seen of them being interviewed and such, I mean, they weren't stupid people. This it ties in. There's a lot of things. I don't. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash them or say, "Ooh, look how wacky they are." I'm not the mainstream media. I'm just trying to analyze what they believe and tell you what happened, and tell you how it all relates to the bigger picture of the grand conspiracy. But I think a big part of this desire, they see things like in the world, they see how screwed up our world is. So you can't really fault them for, as wacky as it may seem, but just to go away on a spaceship, just get away from this planet as it falls apart. I mean, that's not too strange. But then it does get a little weird when they start getting this power hungry, kind of desire to become like God. That gets a little weird to me. But as far as wanting to be spiritually enlightened, I could see that, wanting to go to the next level, none of that sounds bad, but I think ultimately a lot of them are just being deceived by not such nice entities, on a different realm as us. And yeah, I mean, and and going back to that whole ancient astronaut idea that we were planted. This is one thing that I watched this video a while back, and this, if you haven't seen this, this will blow your mind. So, like I mentioned earlier, Richard Dawkins, one of the most avowed atheists, just hardcore atheists, just attacks religion any opportunity he gets, just says there is no God, period. He himself said he would not totally discount the idea of us being created by some superior intelligence, which basically, sounds like what these people are saying, extraterrestrial. So let me play that clip for you. It's really short. And let me just get that going. Okay, here we go.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
So what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right. How did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design would be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
So
All right, so that's a clip. Isn't that amazing? You think of Richard Dawkins, and then, man, this whole thing with us being seeded by aliens. If you study the Illuminati, you can see them attacking the world, the major world religions, and wanting to get rid of religion. So what better way, if you think about it? I mean, really, what better way to get rid of religion and the idea of God and a higher power, and saying, by saying, oh, we figured it out, we were created by aliens. But then I guess the question would go from there, who created the aliens? But regardless, I mean, that would just be a huge blow, to religious thought. And UFO religions, they kind of say Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and all the other religious leaders were cosmic masters, and a lot of them believe they're of extraterrestrial origin, and they basically came to Earth to help mankind in different eras. For them, it is a positive term, and it's basically like a utopia, and so yeah, they're very similar to Theosophy, the Aetherius Society. They talk about the ascended masters, and yeah, I mean they believe all these UFO religion, one world government, and so yeah, when they say New World Order, they mean New World Order. They look at it with a very positive light, unlike people in the conspiracy movement. Obviously, you say that term and you try to use that term positively, most people will be like, look at you like you're crazy. But no, this was written in 1990, and it talks about the New World Order, meaning the new coming age, the age of Aquarius, which is also New World Order. I mean, is a term that was used by the Theosophical Society. It would describing the same thing, a universal brotherhood. Like I said, channeling is a huge one. I'll get into the Ashtar command pretty soon, and that was originally started by someone channeling. And yeah, it's really interesting the things they say. And then also in past broadcasts, I mentioned my book called New World Order by the Ashtar Command, which